On the topic of ColossalCon, I see that you went to it. I didn't
I
even know you guys
did.
were starting up conventions. Like, we don't have any conventions at all planned for the rest of the summer here.
Oh, wow. So yeah, no, Colossal, they deem to be okay, given, most, the vaccine has been out and everyone has access to it at this point. And yeah, no, they opened it up and and I was a little hesitant. Not that I didn't want to go, just based on like, so I was very much for it. I was very much like, it's your decision. If you don't want to go, you have that right. And that is your right not to go. But don't shame people for wanting to go as long as the, correct safety precautions are being taken place and all that good stuff. So I was kind of scared like of the backlash of like people being there being like, oh, please don't come close to me or this and this and this. And like I was just kind of like curious, like how is this going to be in a different like environment? Like what is this going to be like? Cause that was my first returning con after COVID, after a year and a half of not doing cons. And I was pleasantly surprised with the just I have never been to a con where there was just no like not that I usually endure, not I usually go through drama at cons. I don't like typically my room, like we're chill, we're good people, like we don't typically have drama, but like just every single person at that convention was just kind of in this state of euphoria. And it was like, we've missed this so much. One, two, Colossal Con is like one of the best conventions. So not only are we starting off back strong with a con that everybody loves, but everyone was just so relaxed and just happy to be there and just so thankful. And it was very refreshing. It was a mindset of everybody. I don't think we realized how much we took cons for granted until COVID happened, and then going back to the first con afterwards it was unreal. It was like, wow, like I will appreciate this way more than I ever have appreciated in my entire life, based on not being able to do it for as long as we had to go without it.
I'm looking forward to going back to conventions myself. It probably won't be until maybe this fall, but maybe
Sure.
next year. Like, we don't have so many up in like Toronto, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm happy to hear that you guys are, having that euphoric feel. How many times
Absolutely.
have you been to ColossalCon?
So that was my fourth colossal.
Okay.
Technically would have been my fifth if 2020 get canceled. But yes, that was my fourth colossal. And oh my goodness, what a blast! Like what a good time. It's just, and then it was fun because everybody that was actually in my room, minus one other person, had never been. So it was a cool experience for me to watch. I call it taking people's con virginities. I love taking people's con virginities, and like it was all their first time at Colossal, and they just got to experience. So that was my fourth Colossal, and honestly, my best so far, without a doubt.
If this is your best, what changes have you seen with ColossalCon and other conventions that you've been going to repeatedly over the years?
Gosh, I mean, like obviously changes with COVID were big in terms of like, more safety precautions, all that stuff, but not including that stuff. I think it's just the population for cons are growing, especially like, for example, Daisho is a typically pretty tiny con. When I first started going to that con, it was around 3,000 people. And now that con is like reaching like 7K. So it's like it's doubled and some, to the point that they expanded, like, and so it's the people, one, in terms of growing, one, I've noticed. Two, I've definitely noticed just like bigger interest in different fandoms that you wouldn't think people would be into, because like there's some things like, you're cosplay and I'm like, I don't think anybody will recognize this. For example, I want to say I patented this. I didn't really patent it, but I cosplay Jenna Marbles because she is my queen. I love her.
Hmm.
She is my favorite YouTuber ever. I've literally been watching her since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like the first ever Jenna Marbles cosplayer, at least one that was publicly known. And I started cosplaying her, and I'm like, nobody is going to know who I am. But there's a fandom for everything at cons. There is. And honestly, I had a good amount of people come running up to me like the first time I debuted her, being like, oh my God, you're Jenna fucking Marbles. That's the best thing I've seen all day. Like I carry around her little dogs and I write hell yeah on my forehead. And I just like, I like, oh, hell yeah. And I just like run around and like do her voice and everything. But, not to get too far off topic, but basically what I guess the changes I've seen is people there's something for everybody, literally. Like, it's not just like, you can go to an anime con and cosplay a superhero. You can go to a, C2E2 or just a regular like comic expo and cosplay an anime character. You are going to find people who are going to mesh with you. You are going to find people who have your interest. There's literally something there for absolutely everybody. And I think that's the greatest part about cons is they're evolving into this whole new animal of, there's an app for that. Like, there's a con for that.
Do you think that cons will continue to grow throughout this next decade? Or do you think we're seeing the peak of nerddom right now and we're going to start to see a little bit of a plateau, if not regression, as people realize that they can still do cosplay and get a lot of attention and meet friends, but they can do it from their home and put it on platforms instead?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I guess it's just a matter of personal preference, because I know, nerds in general, I mean, like we're all different, but I feel like more introverted than extroverted, just because we're the people who play video games all day, every day. We're in our rooms, we got our headsets on, we've grown up our whole lives. At least that's how I am. Regardless, I am not an introvert to it all. I am the extrovert to the max. Like, so it depends on you as a person. For me personally, cons are where it's at. Cons is something that can't replace. Like, I can post 1,000 TikToks, I can post 1,000 posts on Instagram, and I can get followings. But for me, and this is just me, the reason I like to post on TikTok, the reason I like to see myself growing on these social media platforms is because I get to meet these people in real life when I go to a con. Having somebody come up to me at a convention saying, I recognize you from Instagram, I love your work, or, you seem like a really cool person. Like, that for me is like the height of why I do what I do. Having somebody to take the time to stop and say, your thing made me really happy to the point I felt I needed to tell you. And I love that. And that's just for me personally. So going to a con, I feel, is the peak. And if it's on the rise of keep on going, I'm going to go until I'm 80 years old. Like, I don't care. I'll be in a wheelchair. Like, I'll be cosplaying the chocolate lady, the corpse, like in the wheelchair. Like, that's my big time dream goals when I'm 80 years old. But I don't think it will decline. I don't think we've reached a peak yet. I really don't. I think it's going to keep growing. Obviously COVID has a big wrench in terms of probably limiting people. I know ColossalCon, this was definitely the smallest ColossalCon I've ever been to. With that being said, though, I feel like if you're not putting COVID in the equation, I feel like it's still going to be on the rise. I feel like it's still going to be something, just because it's a different experience. And at the same time, while I say all this, these people who are, genuinely sheltered, I won't say sheltered, introverted, kind of likes to keep to themselves. I feel like this is the one place those people feel comfortable that they can go out. They can be in an environment where they're with people like them that understand them and are just genuinely happy to, hey, I'm introverted, you're introverted. We can just talk. We can just walk side by side and not say a word for the next hour. And it's like, you're going to find more people like that, but you have people who are just like, I know people who don't leave their homes unless it's a con. Like, that's the one time they go out. So I don't think it's something that will decline. I don't think it's peaked. I think it's just going to keep growing, because I think it's a safe place for literally everybody. And that gives you a reason to not go out and experience that, but experience it in a way that's comfortable for yourself.
I wanted to ask you about the scene that you're coming up in. I don't have much experience with cosplay circles outside of Canada,
Okay.
but I've heard so many great things about Florida and New York and Cali, and like how tight knit and
Yes.
how amazing and progressive their cosplay circles are. Could you tell me a little bit about what experiences you had as a newbie and what experiences you're currently having as a vet, and you're seeing so many new people come to the scene? And you can keep it within like your general like location, your region.
Awesome. Yeah. I've recently, I live in Chicago and I lived in Orlando. So I was in both for a while. So that's why my Instagram, it says Chicago/Orlando, because I was like, technically, like, I currently am now back in Chicago. I was in Orlando for about a year. Unfortunately, COVID, I had to move back home. But I was, it's from when I first started, I kind of didn't even know what I was getting myself into, kind of. So it's like, I was in a niche, but I didn't know so much. And I'm seeing now more and more, it's evolving into like just like I said, I made friends with Cece and Alora, and they're two of my best friends in the whole wide world. And it's just like there are these people who've got like, you know, different, there are different groups of people, I guess. You have different fandoms, have meetups and all that stuff. But there are, I'm not quite sure like how to describe it, I guess. When you don't really know you're a part of like a cosplay clique until you're in one, and then you realize like kind of everybody knows everybody and all this stuff. But I know like for example, the Chicago community is very the Chicago community is very tight knit. It's very diverse. And it's also like we're in an area where we travel around. So there's lots of cons around the area. For example, like I go to more cons out of the year bordering states in Chicago than I do actual Chicago, but so do those same cosplayers. So it's just kind of this group of same people. It's like we're all Chicago based, but we're like, we love this con and we love this con. So we're gonna go travel, we're gonna go to it. So it just really depends, I guess. And I guess the only negative downside is I have unfortunately seen some cliques of cosplay groups where they're kind of just like they put themselves in an elite category, or they're this, they're better than that, XYZ, and they kind of just want to keep it to themselves and they don't want to open it up, which I disagree with 1,000%. Like cosplay is cosplay, you know, like there's not one thing that makes or does make you like makes or doesn't make you a cosplayer. Like, you know, it's like, for example, I do not sew. I can do craft work, and I've like can make armor. Like I've made a handful of my stuff, but other stuff I've purchased, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But there are some people who will literally like are in these groups of like, well, if you didn't make it, you're not a real cosplayer. Or if you are wearing, you know, a swimsuit version of a cosplay, it's not a real cosplay. And it's just like, and that's like, you know, the negative side of these niches, these groups where I'm just like, you know, you don't make the rules. Like you're not in this elite category of cosplayers who you get to pick and say what is cosplay and what is not cosplay. Anything is cosplay if you want it to be. I could wear a box on my head and say I'm fucking cosplaying and call it that. Like, so I guess that's the only like, you know, negative side I would say that I've seen with these groups. But overall, at least from my personal experience, I've got some really like awesome communities to the point where like if I go back to Florida, I used to actually work out Player One video game bar. It's literally a cosplay video game bar, and I used to be a bartender there. And that was the coolest place I've ever worked. But those girls are like my family. Like I literally go to visit and I see them and I love them, and like that's a group of people that always have my back. I'll always have theirs. So it's just kind of the thing of like, you know, I guess find the groups that you vibe with, one, but find the groups that don't think they're better than everybody else, because like we're not here for that.